Bill wrote a letter to Daniel shortly after he passed away, and we feel privileged to share these intimate thoughts with you, read by his brother John.
Daniel, I remember when I first met your mother. I remember when she told me that I was going to be a father. I remember that morning in the delivery room. All the chatter stopped, and then seconds later, baby was crying. I remember calling my father and letting him know he had a fresh new grandson. I remember when Don Wagner held you in his big, comforting arms. I remember you going to see Miss Dottie in the latest yearly Halloween costume. Oh, the joy you brought every October 31st. I remember you visiting Mr. Leach and what fun you two had. I remember taking you to school, and you just couldn't understand why I could push you and your friends all day long. I remember that first quail hunt with Alan. You behind our dog, Brittany, on point with your little 410. You dropped your first quail. I remember sitting in a tree stand together on Pritchett Lane with Ed. You took your first deer. I remember your graduation from Mountaintop and how you made us all cry and then laugh until it hurt with your stories of school life. I remember our trip to Montana with Crick, Greg, and Tim, and how we walked along the Missouri River for days. We quoted Lewis and Clark because it seemed as though they would be coming around the bend any minute now. Glorious days filled with duck hunting in the morning and pheasant hunting in the afternoon. I remember our first trip to Kansas with Tim and Eric. What a beautiful piece of waterfowl heaven that was. I remember the day I dropped you off at college. You unloaded your stuff. I thought we'd spend the rest of the day, but you said, "You're good," and sent me home. You were ready. I was not. I remember taking you to Kent State in Ohio for your summer job. We were there early and found out that the doors didn't open until 2. Again, you said, "I'm fine. Go back to Virginia." I remember your theater department college graduation. And what a wild celebration it was. VCU knows how to send its students out into the world. I remember the road trip to Denver this past summer when I worried about you driving all alone for such a distance and invited myself. You had fished all day on the Chesapeake Bay, picked me up at BWI at 8 p.m., and in a 26-foot box truck, off we went into the night. A storm thundered as we drove through Maryland and West Virginia, and this scared the hell out of me. You just kept on trucking. By 4 a.m. the next morning, I finally convinced you we needed to stop, and found that it's hard to check into a motel at 5 a.m. But you found one that would shelter us. And then we drove all day long and spent the night in Kansas. I caught a flight back home and the next morning, and you continued on to Denver. What I will always remember is the trip we took just 3 short weeks ago. We drove together to Kansas. We laughed, told stories the whole way. We arrived in Kansas to find that the ducks had not arrived yet. They were still in Nebraska. We are hunters, and the hunters are eternal optimists. We still managed to enjoy a few wayward ducks, and geese and pheasants were plentiful, and we both filled our freezers with meat for 2020. This letter was going to be longer, but it's decided I needed to remember that last glorious morning in Kansas with you, rather than what has unfolded in our story the last week. I will also remember the kindness of the hundreds this week. That is what they'll remember. Love, Pops.